Welcome back to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon, and this week, John Ostronomy is joining me from Talking Metal.
Hey, today. Mitch, I am really happy to be on my first episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. How are you?
Good. It's going to be a fun one. You know, we've got Richie Faulkner of Judas Priest, and of course, Dave Lombardo, formerly of Slayer. It's important to say that formally because there seems to be no love lost in that camp. And his new band, Philm, and of course their new album, Fire from the Evening Sun. And then at the way end, somebody you may know, Jon Haber of Alto Music, but he's got a new band, Dec3. So full episode.
Great.
Full
yeah,
episode.
Absolutely. 3 great interviews. Definitely excited to hear all 3 of them, and especially the interview with Jon Haber. That sounds very cool. I've also always been a fan of Dave Lombardo's drumming from back when I first got into heavy metal, when I was in, I guess, probably about 7th or 8th grade. Wow. And Slayer was one of the first bands that my friends and I were into. And Dave's playing was something that I always try to play like as a, 7th grade drummer. And double bass was a big deal to me at that point. And I was definitely influenced by what he did. So I'm really excited to hear the interview. And Richie Faulkner, I think he's just a great guitar player. I think he's a perfect fit for Judas Priest. And I know that Glenn Tipton told Mark that he feels that Richie really saved the band. So what a cool thing.
I think I'd agree, first of all, because, KK left, and so they needed a guitarist, but also his writing. I mean, Richie wrote, or co-wrote, let's not say he wrote, but he co-wrote the entire new album, Redeemer of Souls. And lyrically and musically, the album just brings it back to what Judas Priest used to do, and I think it makes a big difference. That, I don't want to say that the band had gotten tired in the sense of, here's another Priest album, but they just needed some new energy, some new blood, and right there. Quickly on Dave Lombardo, since you were a big Slayer fan, how did you compare them to the kings of the scene, Metallica? Like, why did Slayer not get all the way up to that stadium level?
Back when I first, what I call discovered Slayer, and we used to have this thing where whoever got the album first, quote, discovered the band. And I actually didn't discover Slayer, but I discovered Metal Church. That was the only band I actually discovered. But anyway, back when the collective group of heavy metal fans from my high school, discovered Slayer, I used to put Slayer right up there with Metallica and with a lot of the other bands, and at the time wouldn't have thought one would have went mega big and the other one would have just stayed like a pretty big heavy metal band. Right. And I'm thinking that my initial thoughts right off the top of my head, and that's a great question, by the way, is maybe the image with the satanic image, maybe that held them back a little bit in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And I think that, do you think that they were possibly a little heavier than Metallica?
Oh, definitely. I mean, listen, if you compare the Black Album or the albums that came after to anything Slayer did, you're talking about 2 different genres of music, quite frankly. I mean, Slayer is much more aggressive, much more in your face, much more, and I don't mean to be cliche, but take no prisoners. Metallica softened up a bit. Now, I happen to appreciate that softened up because I like, Kiss and Def Leppard and bands that are a little fluffier, for the lack of a better word. But,
right.
Slayer is definitely more metal than Metallica.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, and I think that just the way the chips fell and what happened with Metallica, was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and they are really, in my opinion, and probably in a lot of people's opinion, the biggest heavy metal band out there.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't see anybody touching them, in even the range of touching Metallica for a long time to come.
Yeah, no, they are the kings of metal, but... Speaking of kings, let's talk about a metal god, Rob Halford. Of course, Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls is the new album, and now we spoke to Richie Faulkner, the new guitarist, and of course, Richie talks about writing for the album, joining the band, and of course, his time with Lauren Harris, who was Steve Harris, who is Steve Harris's daughter of Iron Maiden. Why don't we listen to Richie?
Sounds great.
Here he is, Richie Faulkner.
I can hear you. Hey, Mitch.
Good day, Richie. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. How are you doing?
Good, good. It's been a while. I haven't interviewed you since I believe the Nostradamus. No, not the. Anyway, since the last time in Montreal. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you. So let's talk Redeemer of Souls, the new Priest album, which you had an incredibly big part in. You wrote pretty much every track.
We co-wrote every track. It wasn't, I wouldn't take credit for writing every track. That would be totally unfair.
No, but you wrote them with Glenn and, of course, with Rob. Let's just talk about that. I mean, here you are, and for the lack of a better word, you're the rookie. You just came into this band that had, at that time, 38, 39 years under their belt, and they brought you in. Tell me about writing with them, what it was like to be accepted, the whole thing.
Well, right from the word go, Mitch, it's been inclusive. It's a family atmosphere. It's one of those situations that kind of exceeds all your expectations. It's not a dictatorship or one or two guys calling the shots. It's a family, and it is a band of brothers, right from the word go. So from choosing leather and studs and ideas into that creation, into set production, set lists, changing the songs, and right into the studio environment. It's always been inclusive, and opinions have been asked for and listened to, and obviously you repay that, and everyone does the same thing, and that's what it's been like really from day one. So it's just been an incredible education on how to do things and how to make things work for the whole, as opposed to maybe just for yourself individually. You know what I mean? It all benefits the whole, and it's a joy to see a band after 40 years having that much love and passion for what they do, and listening to someone else that was coming in, and they, you don't necessarily have to take on board or act on what the new guy is saying, but just to ask for it and see if they, we can do anything different. I think it's an incredible lesson to learn and a great testament to their foresight, really. It's just been a joy, and we went into the studio, obviously created Redeemer of Souls, and we put it out there, and the fans put it in their first entry into the Billboard Top 10 that the band's ever had. So, again, a huge thank you to the fans for that. And now, obviously, that fires us up for the next round of touring and putting these new songs out into a set list and hopefully creating future classics for the next 20, 30 years. It's just a great thing to be a part of, both creatively, personally, and, just upholding that ethos of the heavy metal mindset of doing what you're doing, believing in it, and sticking to your guns and forging new paths, and kind of flying the flag for heavy metal. It's just a great honor. What's the word? It's a great honor to be a part of that, is what I'm trying to say.
40 years into their career, and you've been there for the last few. What do you think it is about Judas Priest that keeps fans interested and keeps them coming back?
Well, I can only speak for what turns me on to their music. I think Priest have always had a healthy dose of reality and fantasy. Some of the songs like Breaking the Law, kind of social statements, that at the time and at any time of anyone's life, we see this struggle, and sometimes our social environments aren't, there's a bit of struggle and a challenge, and that's kind of summed up in songs like Breaking the Law. And then there's other moments of the band's career which kind of take you off into another world, like The Painkiller or The Sentinel. And I think, for me anyway, it just creates a big, broad tapestry of experiences to take from. You can have that reality-based statement, or you can go into another world and relive fantasies, and you can go into... The band live, obviously, is a different animal, and we all know and love what a Judas Priest show is. And all those things sort of come together. And I think that's why Priest have been at the forefront of the metal movement back in the, I'd say, late 70s, early 80s, and continue to be this day. And even some of the newer bands like Avenged Sevenfold, Hailstorm, and bands like that are actually tipping their hat to the old guard, if you like, of metal, and unashamedly so. They're putting elements in their music that have that same essence of what Priest and Maiden or Sabbath are about, and they're unashamed of it. So that's the way that metal is thriving and breaking new ground, and while tipping hat to the old guard. I think it's an incredibly positive situation to be in.
It really is. Now, let's talk a little about your path getting to Priest. You played for a while with Lauren Harris, who, of course, is Steve Harris of Iron Maiden's daughter. Tell me a little bit about that experience. And, did you get a chance to ever jam with the Maiden guys? Is that how you got to meet Priest? Just talk a little about that experience.
Well, Lauren started back in 2005, and originally it was going to be a solo project, and which Steve was behind. Steve loved the material, and it was obviously it was a pop thing, really. And with Steve's involvement, it kind of morphed into a bit of a rock. But first, it was rock pop. Then it changed into pop rock, if you know what I mean. I can't remember which way around it went, but it definitely went more rocky while retaining that pop element. But definitely, I mean, me and Steve got together with Lauren a couple of times, wrote a few songs. He actually recorded a couple of songs with us live in the studio for a record. And then we were out on tour with Maiden as well, over the best part of 2-3 years, I think it was, on the Somewhere Back in Time tour. And I think all that stuff is instrumental. When I was being considered for the role in Priest, they wanted someone that they weren't kind of well known, because that could come with a certain amount of baggage, a certain amount of conditions and stuff like that. They didn't want someone that was totally green, because obviously you could get up on a big stage and freeze up. You never know. They wanted someone in the middle, and I was just like, with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, there was the porridge that was just right. I think that was kind of what it was. I'd been out on these major world tours, major schedules. You know what to do. You know the rules that you've got to play by. But at the same time, I hadn't been around the block. I wasn't kind of known from 5 different bands. It was just right, And that, with a couple of other things that they were looking for, contributed to the fact that it all worked out well, and here we are today.
Yeah, it did work out quite well. Did you ever give any thought to doing anything solo? Because your guitar playing, and, I've only got to know you over the last few years with Priest, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, had you been with the band since the beginning, you would have been a guitar god by these days. That would have been your name.
Thanks very much, man. That's incredible to hear. I mean, I'm a guitar god in training. That's the way I like to see it. I've been given the opportunity to play with these guys and to write with these guys and create new Priest material and to learn. It's just a great education along the way, as I said before. But I've given thought to solo stuff. I mean, Priest, obviously, they're more advanced in years than I am.
Right.
So they'll probably be retiring a lot sooner than I will. So obviously that thought does cross your mind. But, when you've got something that you care about and you've given so much time and energy to, like Redeemer of Souls, and now we're gearing up for the North American and Canadian tour leg in the US, you kind of, we've just finished rehearsals, you give that your attention, whether it's set list or new stage leathers or production stuff, that becomes your world, and it always has been, really. Obviously the thought crosses your mind, as I said, so we never know what the future holds, but hopefully whatever it will be carrying on that legacy of Priest mentality and obviously guitar playing, while putting your own stamp and creating new musical territories moving forward. That's what Priest have always done as well. So, it's an exciting thing to think of, exciting concept to think of. But you've got to pay respects to the legacy that you're a part of, while forging forward with yourself. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Now, speaking of forging forward, a few years back, Priest put out Nostradamus. It was loved by many, hated by many, sort of was split down the fan base. Coming into Redeemer of Souls, was there panic? Was there, okay, we need to make another British Steel, or was it like, we'll just do what we do? How did that sort of come together?
That's exactly how it was, Mitch. I mean, it was, let's do what we do, let's write from the heart. I think the fact that they'd got Nostradamus out of their system played a part in that, obviously. I think that if they hadn't done that, that would still be on the cards now. The fact that they'd done it. We wanted to get back to not necessarily a point in time to recreate, but just to do what comes from the heart of Judas Priest as individuals and as a band. And again, I can't take credit for that character, but they've all got, over 40 years, all these guys have got that character as individual musicians, and you put them together and they create that one unique character that we all know and love about Judas Priest, Then, if I've got a little bit of character that I'm injecting, but their character's so strong, And that's just what we wanted to do. Whatever comes from the heart, we wanted to capture it raw and kind of unrefined and just what Judas Priest does. So the great thing about that is if there's blues elements or hard rock elements or speed metal elements or whatever it is, it all made sense in Priest's back catalogue and tapestry of music, you know. They came from the progressive blues. They invented heavy metal as we know it, along with Sabbath and some others. And then all the branches that came off that, they were ultimately responsible for. So it kind of frees you up to do whatever you want in those, you know what I mean? Whatever comes from the heart. It makes sense. It's a great song. Let's put it to tape. And that's what we did, just to create a raw, powerful, and unashamedly heavy metal Judas Priest record. And that's what we did with Redeemer of Souls.
Yeah. Now, let me talk about an album that many people might not have heard of, the Charlemagne Omen of Death album that you did arranging for. Tell me a little bit about that project and what got you involved with that for Christopher Lee.
That's right, man. It was a friend that worked on the first record. He was a drummer that I knew around London. That he called me up during the first record, and I think I was out with Lauren at the time, and I couldn't. It was a video they were doing or something like that. They were putting this project together for the first record. I wasn't available, but when the second album was being created, their guys got in contact with me again, and they basically had the orchestration for some skeletons of some songs that they wanted to put into a format which could be played by a metal band live, you know. So they sent me these tracks that had Sir Christopher singing on them and some orchestration, some violins and some, you know, all that type of stuff. So what I had to do is kind of come up with guitar riffs and drum fills and kind of rearrange it all so it could be played by a metal band. And it was great, dude. I was sitting in the kitchen, and Sir Christopher's voice came booming out of the stereo and out of the the speakers that I was working on. And again, he was just a great guy. He upholds everything that metal's about, you know, standing up for what you believe in and sticking to your guns and all that. And he's from a different era as well. You know, he's I can't remember how old he is now, early 90s, I think he is.
91 or something like that, yeah.
That's it, man. So he comes from a different time, but he's very much involved in current affairs and what's going on. So it's an incredible balance of how different people see different things from different times. So an honour to be a part of that as well.
Is that something you'd want to do moving forward, is get into arranging for other bands or producing for other bands? Or do you just want to be the guitar guy, leave me alone, that's what I do?
I'd never rule anything like that out. I mean, it's all part of the, the creative veins, I suppose, that we've all got in us as creative people. If it was a production job or a project, or if it was, I love soundtracks and movie soundtracks and even video game soundtracks these days are just epic. They take you to another world. And I'd love to be involved in that. Even things like, Vangelis, Blade Runner, big movie fan, big sci-fi fan, and all the, John Williams, Vangelis, it's just all part of that taking you to another world through sound. And I'm very much interested in that. Even Hendrix was a part of that. He took you to different planets and, that sort of stuff. So I would always consider something like that if it was something that turned me on musically, Yeah,
so scoring would definitely be something that interests you. Now, you mentioned that Christopher Lee and his metal album stood for everything metal. Your first performance with the band was on American Idol, which stands for everything that's not metal, right?
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that experience. Was that sort of baptism by fire? Was that sort of surreal, considering that, you're Judas Priest and you're not in some bar somewhere, you're on a soundstage in LA? Just tell me a little bit about that experience and how it was.
Well, the whole opportunity came about as I was being considered for the job. Right. It was James Durbin that was getting to a point in the show where he was going to be invited back to the finale, whether he won or not. Right. And we saw that as an opportunity to, although it's not heavy metal, Priest have always been about flying the flag for metal,
right,
and putting metal into as many homes or arenas as we can around the globe. And we saw that as an extension of that.
Right.
And if we can get Judas Priest, the heavy metal music that we all know and love, and we all know there's a big community of fans that love our music. I'm not saying just Priest music, but metal in general, that's the music that we all love. If we can see that and put that into 30 million homes in the US alone, that is like, it matches up with a mission statement. So we know that we got a few snide remarks and a few question marks raised, but we saw that as an extension of flying the flag for metal, Yeah. So when we were up there on the stage, we just delivered the way we normally did, and it was my first obviously performance with a band on not a live national TV. You just got to grab the bull by the horns, man. You've been selected to uphold that duty and responsibility. You better get on with it and do it, and that's what we did.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you that it's putting metal into the homes, and so I think it's perfectly fine. You would just think that for yourself, you would want your first performance with the band to be at Wacken or something, right? But
yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to complain either. I understood, from the people that what do you call it? Like they poo-pooed it. I understand their point of view, but I also understood the point of view of Priest, and again, what am I going to say? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely there, and again, you've been chosen to fly the flag, and that's what I'm going to do. So whatever it takes, really. Yeah.
Listen, I'm in full agreement. If Priest had hired me to be the guitarist, I would have said yes. Tell me at what time you want me there. End of story.
Exactly. But as I said, I also understand the skepticism from the other side as well. But that's part of the creative industry and different people's opinions, and that's thank God for people's opinions. That's why we're all here.
And let's just quickly get back to Redeemer of Souls. Album came out. It's fantastic. You're doing the tour. Have you started already compiling for the next album, or are you not even in that zone yet? It's just like, whoa, forget it. It's too far ahead.
Well, it's a good question, man. I mean, as I said, our focus at the moment is on the new tour and all the aspects of that, whether it's stage production or set list or anything like that. So that's where our focus is at the moment. But we're always individually coming up with different riffs and ideas. That's who we are as creative people, And it's, especially you go around the world and you see different things and experience different cultures and people. You can't fail to but be inspired by that, and you pull melodies and stuff out of the air. So we're always coming up with new stuff, and purely going by the creative energy that we had doing Redeemer of Souls. I mean, we had 18 songs on the deluxe edition.
That's right.
I wouldn't write off another Priest record. I mean, I'm not saying there definitely will be, but I'm saying purely based on that, there's definitely potential for more Priest material in the future. So let's keep our fingers crossed and watch this space.
Well, you'll be happy to know that just before you called, I was talking to Rob Halford doing another interview, and he said, "Oh yes, absolutely, there's going to be more. This band is never going to die." So,
well, yeah, I mean, it kind of goes. It's like a cycle, We went out on the Epitaph tour. It fired us up for new ideas and new experiences for a new record. You do a new record, and you can't wait to play these new songs live. So you get out there and play them live, and in turn, that's going to fire you up again, So no doubt there'll be. Rob. Rob obviously comes up with ideas all the time. We all do. So I'm quietly confident that there will be. I just don't want to, count our chickens before they hatch. But I'd be quietly confident that there will be a new Priest record somewhere in the future.
That's great. And just before we end, any surprises on tour? Are you pulling out any lost gems? Are you doing anything different?
Well, obviously, we've got to have a healthy balance of new material in the set. So, from that respect, we've never done those before.
Sure.
But we can't do too much new material because, not everyone's heard it. And people want the classics sometimes, and rightly so. I mean, if we didn't play Another Thing Coming or Living After Midnight, we'd be lynched in the parking lot outside, But so we're revisiting Defenders of the Faith. It's 30 years since Defenders of the Faith came out. It's the 40th year of the band's career. We've got new material, so it's exciting to consider. We have put a set list together. We've been in rehearsals over the last few weeks. That is obviously subject to change. We've got different tour legs coming up and different parts of the world being put in. Right. So that can change, new material, obscure material from the past. So it's an exciting time, but we're going to revisit all those elements of a pre-show musically, plus obviously the production that everyone knows and loves about Priest, the bike and the light shows and stuff like that. So we just can't wait to get out there and deliver a new record and some classic record tracks with you all.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And my guilty pleasure Priest song is Parental Guidance. I have a feeling that that'll never ever be played live again, but I keep crossing my fingers and saying, "Oh, come on, just one."
Dude, I've got more guilty pleasures than that. I mean, outside of Priest, some of the stuff that I listen to, I probably shouldn't repeat on air, But Parental Guidance is great. Reckless is great. It's a great record, and
it is.
People mention Nostradamus being, loved and loathed.
Yeah.
Turbo was another one of those records for
Absolutely.
me, But you play Turbo Lover live, the track, and it brings the house down. You know, it's just a totally different beast. And a lot of those Priest albums, you know, 5-10 years after they came out, they've been revered for what they should be revered as, you know, just groundbreaking material that maybe not everyone agreed with at the time, but that's what happens when you take risks and you build new paths in new music, and, you know, 10 years, 5 years later, they get recognition they deserve. So it's interesting to see that with the Priest back catalogue. So, again,
and I never understood
parental guidance, Turbo. Sorry, man, go on.
I was just going to say, I just never understood the criticism of Turbo. I mean, okay, it was a little more sort of glam rock, but I mean, that was the scene. They were trying to fit in, and they did it exceptionally well. Turbo Lover, you know, for years people said, what a horrible song. But when I've seen the band live in the last 10 or 15 years, boy, the fists go up in the air when that song plays. So it's like...
Totally, absolutely. I mean, we love playing it live, man. I mean, even Out in the Cold, you know, there's some great tracks on there. And then everyone started doing synth albums. You know, Maiden done it. There's a few other people that done guitar synth albums. And again, you take a risk when you break new boundaries and you pioneer in different things. But, you know, ultimately, that's why I think bands like Priest, Maiden, and, you know, some other ones are still there, because you forge new things, you create new things. And sometimes you get a bit of flack for that. But as we all know, they've become classics over time. So, long may it continue.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. Last questions, please.
Well, I was just going to say thank you, and we'll see you in Montreal.
Thanks, Mitch. Looking forward to it, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, mate.
There you have it, folks, my interview with Richie Faulkner. And, of course, let me remind you that this episode of One on One is brought to you by the A World with Heroes KISS tribute, with all the money raised going to the Vaudreuil-Soulanges Palliative Care Home in Hudson, Quebec. Of course, it's a project that I put together. You know, my wife's father passed away in this home, and it was sort of our way to keep the donations going and keep his memory alive. Well, John, you know, the other thing that you're known for is working with Ace Frehley, and he's got an incredible tour coming up. I just interviewed him. Great time in my life. Oh, always a pleasure to interview Ace, by the way, and he had great answers. Want to just tell us quickly about the tour?
Yes, thanks, Mitch. We are really looking forward to the Space Invader tour, and the first leg of the tour, which is 11 dates in the Northeast and 1 date in North Carolina, have been announced. More dates will be announced soon, and it's going to kick off in New Brunswick, New Jersey on November 13th at the State Theater. This tour is primarily through New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and then a date in Maryland and a date in North Carolina. So we are really excited. It's going to be a brand new band made up of both new, returning, and
well, you got Richie
other
Scarlett
members.
back.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's kind of a cool thing because Richie was at the beginning of Frehley's Comet, the beginning of Ace's solo career, and then you've got brand new members like Chris Wise from The Cult, and then you've got a returning member, Scotty Coogan, who is just a great drummer and great vocalist. So I think it's going to be actually hard to pick tunes for the set because there's so many songs that I would like to hear them do because, of course, we can bring all the tunes that Richie had something to do with. And Ace could have always done those tunes, but it's really cool to have Richie back to do tunes. I personally would like to hear Shot Full of Rock, Too Young to Die, some of those tunes. And we got to hear those.
One. That's what I want to hear.
Oh, that's a good tune. That's a great tune. We got to hear Richie do some of those tunes at the Chance in Poughkeepsie when Richie's band played with 4x Fate, which was great. And by the way, 4x Fate was amazing. And
that was a great evening. That was back in June, and I didn't know what to expect. I had a hand in getting 4x Fate together, and I didn't know what to expect live because live is a different animal. And Richie was great, and 4x Fate were great. And of course, you were there with Mark.
Yep, yeah,
Perfect
it was a fun gig.
Oh,
fun gig.
Absolutely. Everything.
I was going to say my friend Jerry Adams, who is a staple of the New York club scene back in the 80s and 90s, and he put together gigs. He was there. He's a good friend of Ace's, and he booked my band a few times. So it was great seeing everybody. Just seeing everybody together was really cool. But yeah, so this tour is going to be great. The band is going to be tight. And the set list is going to be amazing. We're going to have Richie songs in there. We're going to have
Ace songs, of course.
Ace songs in there, and Scotty Coogan will do some Kiss songs. Yeah. So we literally, I haven't actually discussed the tunes with Ace yet, but I'm sure he's already got the set list pretty much mapped out in his head. But who knows what will happen? Once. All the rehearsals are finished and the band hits the stage, and all I know is that it's going to be a killer set list and a great tour, and I'm looking forward to it. And by the way, guys, if you want to have a chance to meet up with Ace, go to acefrehley.com and go to the tour dates section, and the VIP experiences are available for purchase, and everybody's saying it's a great deal because in all of the concerts except two, and one because the concert's a free concert, you get a concert ticket with it, and you get a T-shirt, and you get a sticker, and you get a CD, and you get a whole bunch of, like, a poster, you get a whole bunch of stuff, and
great.
It's really refreshing to see that a lot of the fans online are talking about how worth it this package is, as opposed to a lot of times people complain when artists charge for a VIP meet and greet and they say the prices are too high. In this particular case, the fans seem to think that they're really getting a good deal with this VIP experience package.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed with some of those VIP packages, is that it's a cattle call. You spend $1,500, $2,000, and they walk you in, they walk you out, and you get 3 seconds with the artist, and you go, wow, really? But this one, it seems to be a lot more than just that. So that's the great news. And I love when artists do this. I just bought a ticket to see Bryan Adams in Montreal, and they sent me a free CD of his new album.
Wow.
That was part of the ticket price. I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. And it hadn't been announced. At least I didn't see it announced. I bought the ticket, and then next thing you know, CD shows up.
Wow.
And it's in advance. The CD doesn't come out till October, and they sent it to me. And I'm like,
jeez.
Huh. All right.
That's great, Mitch.
I'm in for that.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, I always liked Bryan Adams, even before I knew he had a Kiss association. Right. But I think he's a great artist. But as you know, he has that Kiss association.
He does, yeah, on War Machine and Rock and Roll Hell. But he's got this covers album coming out, and it's great. Tracks, what's it called? Tracks of My Years. Tracks of My Youth. I forget the name of it exactly, but
very cool.
Sounds great. So speaking of sounding great, let's head over to Dave Lombardo from, I guess, what was your favorite band as in terms of metal. Philm is his new project, Fire from the Evening Sun. Now, just before the interview, I had been reading online that Dave said, please, no more Slayer questions, no more Slayer questions. So I figured, okay, we'll try to avoid Slayer questions as much as possible. So we talk about Philm. We talk about Kiss, because the rumor or the story is that he bought Kiss Alive and learned how to play or learned how to drum because of Kiss Alive. So we talked about that. He said, yeah, I put it on and, whatever, I was 10 years old or whatever, and I learned how to play everything within 5 minutes. And I was like, is that sort of a condemnation of Peter Criss? Or
5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
He goes, I learned 100,000 years in like 5 minutes. And then, of course, we talked about Cuba. It's not often that you talk politics with a musician, or at least not often that I talk politics with a musician. And, of course, we talk about everything else going on in his life. The time that he played with Metallica. Were you aware that he played with Metallica?
I was not.
In 2004 at the Download Festival, or Donington, Lars Ulrich fell ill, and they went, get over here. Can you fill in for us? And he did. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. If you go to livemetallica.com, which is their official download site, you can buy that whole show for $9, which...
That's a great deal, A. And B...
I wish more bands did that, actually. I love that.
You know what the crazy thing is about Dave filling in is that there are a lot of drummers who are technically good enough to fill in with another band if they would have had time to learn the songs. But there's a difference in jumping behind a kit and playing a standard song in 4/4, like Rock and Roll All Night, which is a great tune. But there's a big difference in jumping on stage and playing that on drums and jumping on stage and playing an entire Metallica set with all these starts and stops and weird things happening in songs. I don't even know how he did that unless he just completely knew every Metallica song by heart.
Well, to be fair and to be clean, he did a couple of songs. They brought in like 3 or 4 drummers that night, and they rotated them in and out.
Oh, okay.
But still, though, coming in and doing blast beats and thrash metal playing without any rehearsal.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I always am amazed when I hear that drummers have done that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and like I said, livemetallica.com, and I don't know if you're aware of it, every Metallica show they throw up on there, and fans can buy it for $9.
That's pretty amazing.
And they've done it since 2004, and it's great. You go to a show, and you can have an instant memory.
Show.
And,
that is really cool.
Yeah, and I honestly, I know that there was Instant Live, and there was, what was some of the other ones, where they sold shows like that. But the Metallica model, because it's done online, to me is the absolute best model. And I wish all my bands did it. I wish Cheap Trick did it. I wish Kiss did it. I wish Ace did it. I wish all of them did it. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. But speaking of love here, why don't we listen to Dave and my chat for talking about Philm and, of course, drumming. Here's
very cool.
We're speaking with Dave Lombardo of Philm. Great band. Great. I've been listening to the music and from on Fire from the Evening Sun. Might as well say the album, right? And
yes.
Musically, I love it. It's sort of everywhere. You've got stuff that has sort of a punk vibe. You've got stuff that has a stoner rock vibe. You've got the Corner Girl song, which is just its own vibe all to itself. Tell me how you came about putting the project and what kind of musical influences you were looking for, or what did you want to say musically, since it's so diverse?
Well, I mean, upon meeting Jerry, in '95, I realized that his songs, not only his songwriting, but his guitar sound and his style of playing was really different and unique. And from the moment I met him, I said, "Hey, we have to put a band together," And so we've kept in touch through the years, and recently we found a reason to put the band back together. Mm-hmm. And so we just bring in all the different influences that we have from different genres of music, and with the musician's ability to recreate it. We kind of just do it our own way.
Musically speaking, when you get down to making a third and fourth album, which I'm assuming you'd like to do you try to focus? Are you going to try to focus in on a certain sound, or do you sort of like this freedom to paint the canvas any which way you want?
I mean, as of right now, we have 6 songs for the next record
already. Okay,
and yeah, we've been writing those, and I feel, although it taps into some heavy, thrashy elements, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's all over the board as of right now. It doesn't go into any particular mode.
Yeah. What are the particular challenges of putting together? I mean, let's call it a new band, even though it's been about 2 or 3 years now. But what are the challenges of putting together sort of this new brand, for the lack of a better word, in 2014? You don't really have MTV to support. You don't really have radio. You don't really have all the magazines that we used to have.
Well, I mean, of course my history helps, but also, what we do is just, play word of mouth, and, we put the word out there via, let's say Twitter and Facebook, and you just build.
How important then is it the social media? I mean, do you get on there and work it yourself, or do you have a team of people that tweet for you and Facebook for you?
Well, actually the band, and our assistant, and also record company, personnel, they have access to our Facebook account. So they add, and I do things as well. I go on there and like some of the things, some of the people say, and, and I run my own Facebook page. So, I think it's essential in this day of age. You need to do it. You need to be out there. You need to be visual, accessible at least.
Yeah, you really do. I'm going to take you back in time, 2000 and I believe 4.
Okay.
Donington.
Uh-huh.
Metallica plays, and Lars has a mystery medical emergency. First of all, can we reveal what the mystery medical emergency was, or do you know and just won't say? Or
no, I don't know. Okay. I honestly don't know. I guess he was ill or fell ill, and had to go to the doctor. I mean, I think that's what happened. I'm not too sure. That's more of a question for
them,
for those guys.
But tell me how it was getting up there doing the Four Horsemen, Battery. Is Metallica important to you in your life? Were you a fan, or was it like, man, it's just a gig, I'll just play a couple of songs, who cares?
Yeah, no, they were, they were a big part of my musical upbringing. We played a show with them, at this place called the Woodstock many years ago, with Ron McGovney on bass and Dave Mustaine on guitar.
Wow!
So this was the original, Metallica as it started.
So what was that? 80 or 81, I guess, right?
It must have been 82.
82. Wow.
83. 82, 83. I couldn't tell you if I was in school or out. I would probably know, but at that time, yeah. They were a big part, and it was exciting to go up there and play with those guys. I particularly enjoyed, rehearsing in their own little
side
music
trailer or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, trailer backstage, and shit. It was a lot of fun. It was great.
What kind of vibe was it with the band? Do they sort of welcome you? Do they just say, do your best? Or like, is it different than playing with Slayer or playing with some of those other bands? Or is it sort of like, how did you feel? And I guess that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I felt welcomed. I felt, very welcomed by everyone and appreciative, I mean, I only bailed them out of 2 songs,
right.
But that's cool. But those 2 songs were the ones I was most familiar with. Because it was predominantly the newer material and that stuff. I don't know. It was great fun.
What's really cool about it too is they have this livemetallica.com site that you can go and you can purchase that show for like $5 or $9 or something, and it's got to be a cool little memory to have, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that they had that.
They do.
I didn't know they were selling it.
Yeah, they've been selling it since the actual day of the show. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the story of Dave Lombardo and how you got into drumming is you bought Kiss Alive and you learned to play along to the songs on Kiss Alive. True story?
Part.
Okay.
It's in part true story. My interest in drums go, way before purchasing that Kiss Alive record. That was just a part of, acquiring a drum set at that age and, and the interest of creating new music. I mean, not creating music, learning new music.
Right.
It goes further. I mean, I could tell you about it if that's where you want me to go.
Yeah, well, I'm just sort of curious, how important was a band like Kiss in your formation? Was it just, listen, I have Alive and I learned a couple of songs and that's it? Or were you one of these sort of, because, the Kiss fan base is like sort of the Star Trek fan base. They're rabid. And are you that kind of Kiss fan or?
Oh, no.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No. This was something that I was into when I was, probably 13, 14 years old.
Gotcha.
And I loved their music. And, my dad bought me a drum set and I went ahead and, started playing along to the songs because I enjoyed them, including the song 100,000 Years that had a drum solo. I would mimic that drum solo as a kid, try to play along to it. But my interest, go go way back to probably when I was 2-3 years old and digging the pots and pans and the Tupperware out of the kitchen cabinets. It went from that point to playing on boxes, and pencils, and my brother playing, Cream or Jimi Hendrix, on the stereo. This is like 1969, probably through 71 or something. And, I'd play along, and then my interest continued to grow. Yeah.
And it's a great, it was a great album and a great song to learn. I'm in Canada, and we're allowed to travel to Cuba as much as we want. I've been twice myself. Do you go back? Are you allowed to go back? What is it like?
No.
No.
Unfortunately, I haven't been back to Cuba.
Is it something that you would want to do?
I would love to go back one day. I think it would be awesome.
Right.
Probably, see some distant cousins and whatnot, and would love to play and just absorb the culture, something that I've been, longing for. But I haven't been able to go.
Yeah, and I ask you for two reasons. First of all, because I'm Canadian and we are allowed to go, but also, the President Obama just last week, in fact, signed the embargo for another year. He renewed it for another year. Is that something that you support? Is that something that you'd like to see go away, or is that something like, I don't even think about it? I mean, leave me alone.
I'm not really much into politics.
Right.
It saddens me that, there's a country there 90 miles off the coast of Key West, and I haven't, been able to travel to. Even when my dad was alive, it might have, would have been cool to take him back over there and for him to tell me everything,
right.
Where the family started. But, it is what it is. I can't, I'm not one of these activists or ones that, voice their opinion, in regards to politics. I don't want to create any kind of controversy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm there.
Okay. You've recently said that you're sick and tired of fucking Slayer questions.
Yeah.
And if you've noticed, I haven't asked you any. Why are you tired of answering the questions? Is it simply because they're really stupid questions, or is it because it's the same question over and over, asked in different ways? Or is it like, listen, I just want to move on. Come on, folks, let me move on.
Well, it's basically, how some of these sites are sending out, these headlines.
Right.
These kind of misconstrued headlines and make that the predominant, part of their site. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just.
Well, they make it salacious.
It's just that, What's that?
They make it salacious. It's Dave said, fuck you, Tom. Dave said, blah, and it's like, well, it's not exactly what he said if you listen to the interview, but right.
Pardon me? If it was what?
Well, the way they frame the headlines is it just makes it seem as though you're bad mouthing them all day long, and that's not really the context of a lot of your comments. If you actually listen to the interviews, right?
If you listen, the kids don't go beyond the headline. If you listen to the interview, you see that I'm not upset about it. I'm not bitching about it. I'm just answering the question. Slayer was a big part of my, career. It was a launching pad, and now I'm onto something new. And, I just really, honestly, just don't care to cover all that. It's been documented. It's all there. And, I think I'm onto new things, interesting things. There's a lot of shit going on. That's a lot more important than what's been done.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. And so let's go back to Philm. Is Philm for you a band that you see going on for the next 10 years, or is this sort of a side project, or is this sort of an in-between until you find another band? How do you qualify the whole Philm sort of experience?
I mean, I see us kind of, evolving, growing musically, and continue to record music. We have a friendship.
Right.
and we also, enjoy, playing, together. And, I don't know, until that burns out, I think we'll be here. So I don't know. Time will tell. For right now, it is a band that I'm really focusing on and enjoy writing with.
What are the tour plans for the next little bit? I mean, Fire from the Evening Sun just came out in September. Are you sort of looking at a 2-year tour cycle, or is it like, let's do a few weeks and then bam, let's get those other 6 songs on tape? What's the cycle for you on this one?
Well, we're going to tour on this, as long as we can.
Okay.
We're right now looking for a U.S. booking agent. We've been working with one in Europe, and we've done several shows, and we're booking ourselves in South America. So there's a lot, there's a lot ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned South America. Whenever you sit here, and I'm in Montreal, you sit in Montreal and you see a report of a heavy metal show in South America, it appears as though the entire country shows up for these things. What is it about that market that keeps them so tuned in to metal?
I guess because it happens once a year, and they enjoy that festival, and they get out, and have a good time. It's maybe they just don't get it as often as we do.
Could be.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? So, any last words about Fire from the Evening Sun, and obviously Facebook's the plug and all that wonderful stuff?
Yeah, it's a new album. Hope the fans enjoy it, and look into creating and touring, and looking forward to visiting Canada.
Great. Very much looking forward to coming to a show once One Around Me is booked. And Dave, it's been a pleasure. And I'm
sorry, what was that? One Around You was what? Booked?
Well, yeah, hopefully when a show gets booked for Montreal or somewhere nearby, I'll be very much looking forward to coming out and seeing.
Oh, that'd be great. Awesome.
And I did my best to stick away from Slayer questions, so I hope you appreciate that.
I know it's difficult.
Well, not really, in the sense that if an artist says they don't want to talk about it, I think you have a duty to be respectful and just say, okay, fair enough.
But I also want the journalists to know that I understand their interest. It's been part of my life. It's part of my history. Why wouldn't I want to talk about that? But you have to understand. It just seems like all these headlines get taken out of context, and I don't want any negativity out there. I have a new band. I have something positive going, and I'm not bitching, and I'm not whining. Yeah, I'm simply answering questions.
Yeah,
that's probably been a fan and wants to know about his favorite band and the drummer that played in it. So it's just very discouraging. Yeah, when things like that happen. But anyways, thank you for not.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I've read a bunch of your interviews recently, and it seems to be, why did you leave? And it's like, okay, but we don't need to ask that 50 times.
No, absolutely not.
You Google Dave Lombardo, you land on a Brave Words article that has, why did you leave? That's there forever, and you don't need to go back to that question 18 times.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
And I agree with that. Honestly, I agree with that. But Fire from the Evening Sun, I really enjoyed listening to it. I really thought it had these peaks and valleys from Train to Corner Girl, where, like I said before, you went from a punk vibe to a metal vibe to a stoner rock vibe to, I don't even know how you describe Corner Girl, more of a fun.
It's a saloon. It's kind of a saloon type of song.
Yeah, so like a bar song. And I wasn't fully expecting that. I was sort of either expecting metal punch down your face, and it made for it just. I listened to it on my headphones.
It's music played by musicians.
Yep, absolutely.
We use minimal, processing. We don't, do any correcting of beats or any kind of resampling. I mean, everything is performed, live. Yep. So I think that's what makes it, at least for me, I love albums that are done that way. And that kind of reflects on my upbringing in music, and that's recording on the tape. We didn't record on computers, and we didn't have metronomes at that time, you know. I mean, well, we did, but we never applied it. So it was all pure.
Yeah, and I recommend that fans listen to it with headphones on because it creates such a headspace. There's all kinds of stuff rolling in and out of your ears from left to right. It really is trippy, quite frankly. It really is trippy.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
And so, Dave, you know, thank you. Thank you for calling today.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
There you have it. That was my interview with Dave Lombardo and his new band, Philm. And now let's just move right along here, John. We're going to talk about another Jon Haber. And he was set up, this interview was set up by Carol Kay, somebody that you're very familiar with.
Yeah, I've known Carol through Ace since the early 90s. And I remember we used to go to see Ace play. There was one time, and it was really funny, we went with Lydia Chris, and Lydia has a Mercedes that's primarily, I believe, a two-seater Mercedes with like a little area in the back. And on the way to the concert, it was Lydia and Carol in the front seat and me and Ricky Bird in like the hatch of this car. So that was pretty funny. We went out to see Ace. I believe that was in Long Island. But yeah, Carol's been a good friend of mine from back in the early 90s when I first had a chance to meet her when I moved to New York in 1991. Wow. And I've been friends with Carol ever since.
Yeah, Carol's great. You know, all the way back from the New York Steel show that Ace played. She helped set up stuff for that. She set up my first ever Ace interview. Recently, she set up my Status Quo. Absolute pleasure to be, I don't know if I want to say associated with, but to exchange and work with to get these interviews set up. Always been a great pleasure. But let's talk Jon Haber and Dec3. Dec3 is his new band and album, and of course he runs Alto Music, which is famous in upstate New York. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm from Montreal, but it's Wappingers Falls?
See, I always pronounced it Wappingers Falls.
See, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I pronounced the G with the J sound, but really interesting note is that on the first Frehley's Comet record, Wappingers Falls Coffee Shop is thanked, I believe. And I think that's because John Regan likes that coffee shop.
That's funny. Yeah, you know, as a Montrealer, we have very easy city names, but between Albany and New York, you've got all kinds of like Poughkeepsie and Sawkill. And it's like, Jesus Christ, can't they just have other cities called like New York? That's so nice.
Right.
And simple.
I never knew when Poughkeepsie was the first date of the Frehley's Comet tour, like after the Frehley's Comet record came out, and Ace said Poughkeepsie on the Headbangers Ball, and then I looked at the tour dates and I'm like, what the heck is that? Poughh? And then I was like, okay, that's Poughkeepsie. That's what he's saying. I didn't realize that, but you're right. But yeah, Wappingers Falls, Poughkeepsie, tons of wild names,
crazy
cities,
names in that state
in the New York, New York area. Mahopac, a lot of them are Native American names.
There you go.
Mahopac is one of them, and Mohegan Sun, Mohegan Lake, not Mohegan Sun, which is a casino where Ace will be playing on tour, but that's in Connecticut. But there is a city up in Westchester County called Mohegan Lake, and I believe that those are all Native American influenced city or town names.
Yeah, you see. So let's. The first single from Dec3 is Redline, and of course, John and I spoke about that, and we spoke about his music business, and we spoke about the future of his band and making music. So why don't we listen to Jon Haber? We are talking with Jon Haber of Dec3. Good day, sir, and of course, owner of Alto Music. Let's not forget that.
Well, thanks, Mitch. It's a pleasure. Thanks for making the time, man. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. So. Let's start right at the beginning. You were in a band called Looker. And
back in the 80s, yes.
Back in the early 80s. You were a musician. and of course the whole life, and then you got out of being an active musician and went into the music business, into being a retailer, and now you're back into being a full-time musician or back in a band. Tell me a little bit about that journey. How was it with Looker, and why didn't you play Madison Square Garden?
Well, we were playing out a lot back in the 80s, and we did do an album.
Yep. Oh, I saw it. I saw that cover. There was hair and makeup.
Yep. I was in that commercial. I'm assuming you saw.
Yeah.
I was in a band, and I feel I was getting a little tired, and I figured I'd do my own thing in music. Open my own music store, sell guitars and whatnot. And but I never stopped writing music, so I've been all this time still doing that. I just wasn't actively playing in a band. So over the years, I had songs used on television shows, and Atlantic Records was holding a song that I wrote for a band, and so I was really honing my craft all these years with songwriting.
Right.
And even though I was doing other things, and here I am. I said at the beginning of last year, I said let me make a real record with all these songs I've written.
Okay.
And that's where we're at now. And it's been a journey doing that.
Yeah, an absolute journey. But when you're running a successful business like Alto Music, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like, you got to put in 100 hours a week, and it's 7 days a week. Where do you find the time to put the music together?
Well, it's true. I work every day, though I don't have to, with modern technology, you don't have to physically be somewhere.
Right.
Necessarily all the time, and that modern technology also helped me do this. Whenever I'm home, I'm always writing the guitar. Playing on a guitar. There's always a guitar kicking around, and I make a couple hours here, a couple hours there on a daily basis. I'm always writing, and you can't really tell you when that's going to hit you. But as far as making the record, I would studio in my house where I would track all my guitar parts.
Okay.
And as I was mapping out the project, and you could send files. So, like, for example, Shane Keister, who played keyboards on a lot of songs, many songs on this record, who's a well-known piano player, played Five for Fighting, all their hit songs, and many other bands. He's in Nashville, so I could just send him the files. We discussed the song, and he could send me back his parts via email.
Right.
So, this is a totally different world now, so I would never been able to pull this off if it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, now, the album is described as having influences from the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Boston, Foreigner. Great bands. Of course, I do notice that Kiss is missing from that list.
I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Okay.
A big Kiss fan. In fact, I used to sign out to go to the bathroom in 6th grade as Ace Haber.
That's funny.
That was my name. I used to call myself Ace, self-anointed. And I remember learning that riff that Ace always uses. It was like a magical moment in my life.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the interview I did just before you this week was, in fact, Ace Frehley.
Awesome. That's great, man. I met him a few years back down at the Gibson factory when he was getting his Ace Frehley guitars together. It was awesome. I actually had that guitar that the smoke used to come out of, on the front cover of Kiss Alive. And I was looking at that. I was actually right in front of me. Man, was that thing beat to hell. It was awesome.
That was great. So where do we go with Dec3? Is this just you put out the album and then you sort of work it, or do you actually go out and tour and hit the road?
What we're doing now is we're getting great feedback on the record. We have the album's not out till
September 30th.
A week from Tuesday, so September 30th. Yeah, and we have about 40 radio stations in the U.S. and Canada playing it, which is awesome. And we're doing we've done some videos. We're doing another big video shoot on Tuesday, and for the lead single, "Put Some South in Your Mouth," which is the lead song on the album. And so I put a band together because obviously, if you listen to the record, there's no way three guys could ever really pull that off live. So I've added two other guys who are both lead singers in their own projects and play guitar and bass respectively, Todd Myhan and Mike Hamill. And so we rehearse, we're rehearsing, and we sound great live. It's so we're looking at doing some shows and, promoting the record any way we can.
And of course, every time Alto Music has a Christmas party, you're going to be the band, right? You have to.
I like watching at those parties. I like eating, sit at the table and watch somebody else play.
But let's go back to making of the album.
Yep.
So you're sitting at home and you've got these ideas rolling through your head. When do you say to yourself, okay, let's put this together? And like you said, you have, Atlantic and stuff holding songs. Why not send them out? What made you decide, okay, this is my time, my project, let's do this?
That's a great question. You only go around this planet one time, right? And the beginning of last year, I go, let me make a real record, not demos, because all the stuff, all these songs I've been writing, they were, available in some type of demo format, but they're not what you would call a proper record. So I said, let me really do this. And so I had the songs, right? But as I started addressing the songs I had written, either replaying parts, adding the real, putting the killer drum parts on there and redoing whatever needed to be redone, I started writing. I hit like a geyser. I've never had such a productive period of songwriting. So the act of actually doing this inspired me. So most of this album now that come out are new songs that I've written in the last year. 8 of the 12, actually, are songs that happened as a result of me really diving into this project on a daily basis. And it's just, I'm really proud of it. It really was just, I never wrote that many strong material in such a short period of time. So, so I have tons of other stuff that I could always, we've already started tracking for another record, and we have a lot of cool songs, and I want to bring the other guys in the band, have them bring some of their songs in, and make it more of a group effort than, something that was just, all my songs.
Yeah, alto musics, and I'm paraphrasing, but the purpose of alto music is to get instruments or music, to get music into people's hands, to get instruments into people's hands. How do you get Dec3 into people's hands?
Well, again, as I stated earlier, the technology out there, and it's a different world we're living in now. So we started, we did a video for. The first thing we did was Redline, right? And that's on YouTube now. And I was interviewed on Fox Television, nationwide.
Wow!
1 million people saw me on TV to premiere that song, and so we got a lot of exposure on that, and which is also helping the album move forward. So we do quite a few videos. We put a video out about 3 weeks ago for just a song on the album, song called Simple Mess, and the response we're getting is just amazing. Basically, we put it up on YouTube, we promoted it on Facebook, but the amount of people who have no connection to the band from around the U.S. and Canada that are responding and sharing it and telling other people about it and commenting on it is just astounding. So we're hitting the nerve somewhere. People are longing for this style of music. Yeah. And I don't think the record companies are necessarily paying attention to this demographic, like guys like me or you, or that would go out and immediately buy something. Here's something that's cool, man. I buy it immediately.
I couldn't agree more with you that sort of 35 and over crowd, which has a lot of disposable income, is completely ignored. I mean, you look at what is successful year in, year out in live performance, and it's all sort of your heritage classic rock bands, from your U2s to your Madonnas to your Kisses. They're selling out venues, and yet the record companies keep saying, you should listen to these 15-year-old girls or these 18-year-old boys. And you go, no.
Everything you just said, you're 100% correct. They're trying to sell music. They're targeting 20-year-olds
who don't have
no
cash.
Money. Right. They don't have any money, and they think everything should be for free.
Right.
Not to knock 20-year-olds. They just pop on, they're not used to spending money on music.
No, but then again,
it's just insane.
When we were 20-year-olds, we also wanted everything for free, and a lot of us had mom and dad buy us stuff. But that's not how it works, right? It's not how it works. You gotta have your own disposable income. Anyway, it's interesting.
It really is. And what does it say for the people making music? I mean, if there's no financial reward, the quality of music is going to go away. People, it's just, so yes, we are on 100% agreement on that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is is when you look at the description of Alto music, it is talked about being New York based, and you talk about the Middleton store and the, excuse me, I'm from Canada, but Wappinger Falls?
Wappinger Falls, yeah.
That's why we have names like Montreal up here, much easier to say.
Right.
But when does the store, is there an expansion plan? Do you come up to Canada? Do you go down to California? Where does Alto music go, or is it sort of just stay New York based?
Yeah, Alto music is, I mean, we had brick and mortar stores, which, we could talk about things used to be, but being a brick and mortar store is not what it once was. I mean, it's a very challenging environment.
Agreed.
Especially do with the Amazon and the internet. And so, I mean, as far as Alto music goes, we are not opening any more stores. You guys got great stores up in Montreal. I mean, you want Pro Audio, you go to
Steve's.
System Guinot, you got Steve's Music,
yep.
You got you got Long and McQuaid's up there. You guys got a lot of great places up in Canada.
Long and McQuaid's is great.
Yeah, a lot of great places.
So does that mean that you focus more on an internet-based model where you're going to get your guitars through, Alto Music? I forget, I didn't check out if you had a .com or not, but is it altomusic.com or something? And people
exactly, yeah. So we're focusing, as far as any expansion from our business, it would be internet-based and keeping our stores relevant. But I'm not opening any more stores.
Is that a challenge? I mean, because that's a whole particular challenge. When you go into a music store and you look at that guitar, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the decision of buying it. It's how it feels in your hand, how it looks, the smell, that sound, the tone. Now you're doing it online. So what's the challenge now to get that guitar into the kid's hand? How do you...
I'm a strong believer of having those stores, and I think that all the musicians that we listened to and grew up living, loving, at some point they were kids that walked into a music store and saw guitars hanging up. That just gets the juices flowing. So without music stores, that magic is not going to be there.
Right.
For electronic items, it's really no big deal. You get something in a box, and it is what it is.
Right. A drum machine's a drum machine.
But what you said on the guitars, that's totally correct. But people buy online; they can always return it.
Okay.
They don't like it, so it's for a store. That's you're competing against every other store online that can ship into your backyard. So for stores to become relevant, they're really going to need some type of internet plan, because that's at least in America, the consumer is going buying online. That keeps going up year after year.
Yeah, and of course you can't build a store in every corner of North Dakota and Iowa and Alaska. Nope. I mean, but you can ship to every corner. So
exactly.
That's the way to go. Of course, I'll remind folks to head over to altomusic.com, which I've actually punched up on my computer here. Really good looking site, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's always a work in progress, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
And of course, Dec3, the album comes out September 30th. Anything else we'd like to add?
No, I just wanted to thank you for making the time talking to me. I follow you online. You got some great stuff, and I appreciate having Dec3 band featured on the show. It's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Great pleasure talking to you.
Hey, Mitch, that was a great interview you did with Jon Haber of Dec3 and of the Alto Music Store.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, Richie Faulkner and Dave Lombardo, got to thank all of them. Another great episode, and of course, having you as the co-host today was fantastic.
I am very excited to have co-hosted my first episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon, and I hope that you'll have me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, folks that are listening on Stitcher and iHeart and iTunes can't see the video, but back there you've got that Eric Carr drum set in the background.
Yep.
Official one, right?
Yeah. That was a kit that Eric used to keep at his friend's studio between tours. I don't know if he did it on all tours, but on at least one tour, he decided after the tour was done, let's ship some gear up to this studio, and I'll go jam on it. When he wanted to, and so I wound up getting the kit, and it's one of my most prized possessions. And the crazy thing is, it's really, really heavy. It looks like chromo wood, which is like a normal Ludwig finish from the 70s and 80s, but it's not. It's some kind of like hard metal like in heavy, not to use the term heavy metal, but it's physically heavy metal wrapped around these drum shells, and the drums are just physically really, really heavy. Yeah, and what's really neat is that, I mean, this was, of course, from the Crazy Nights tour, 1987.
Right, because it's got those Japanese signs on them.
Yeah, it's got the power symbols, the Chikara symbol. But what's crazy about it is that these shells were so customized for Eric Carr that they've got this heavy metal wrap around them. They've got some something sprayed on the inside, which is like a hard plastic, and then they've got jacks in them and triggers and wires, and so back in those days, Kiss must have been adding triggers to Eric's sound, and literally they're very, very cool. I mean, they have like a quarter-inch guitar jack, like what you would normally find in a guitar, in the drums, and they've got little wires in them, and they're very, very cool.
That's really interesting, and I'm wondering if that hard shell changes. I mean, obviously, it must change the sound. It must is it more like a steel drum? And it's like, does it?
See, there's the hard shell. There's the hard shell around the wood, and then there's this spray. I mean, I call it a spray, but I don't know what it is. Like a thick, like
polymer,
I don't know if it's fiber. Yeah, some coating on the inside of the wood. So it's like three different things. Like now Ludwig used to make a stainless steel drum that I think John Bonham used to use, and now that would have a completely different sound. But on this one, the metal is on the outside, so between what's on the inside, the regular several ply wood, and then this hard metal on the outside, they definitely had a different sound, and then of course the bass drum is like twice as long as a regular bass drum, so that is just a huge sound. And I think what Kiss was doing was they were getting the acoustic sound, and then they were also getting a triggered sound, so a combination of both, which is a really neat insight into Eric Carr's sound.
Yeah, because that's really interesting, because the Crazy Nights tour was not this heavy metal tour, so
right,
you figure they'd want a lighter sound, more of a sound that a wood would give you. So that's bizarre. Yeah. But anyway,
maybe I can get a picture of this, and I'll send it to you, and maybe
we'll post it up there.
We'll post it up on the website.
There you go. So there you go. It has nothing to do, of course, with Richie Faulkner, Dave Lombardo, and Jon Haber. But wait, listen. That's part of having a co-host. You talk about other things. So there you go. Always a pleasure. Of course, acefrehley.com, right?
Right.
For tour dates.
For the
and
Ace
VIPs,
tour dates.
Right?
Yep. And definitely everybody, of course, check out TalkingMetalDigital.com and check out the Talking Metal podcast, one-on-one with Mitch Lafon, Mars Attacks, Talking Rock. We haven't done one of those for a while, but definitely support the entire Talking Metal Digital team, including the brand new Metal Raps podcast, which is very cool.
Which is very cool.
There's I've started up a new petition that anybody who's new that comes into the Talking Metal Digital family has to be named Mitch.
Yeah, it's going to be the Mitch channel soon. That's the way to go.
Yeah. We're going to change the name. We haven't announced that yet, but we're going to do it. I'm grandfathered in with the John name, but the next podcast is going to be hosted by Mitch Weissman of Beatlemania. I'm just kidding. Mitch is another one of my really good friends.
Yeah, I know Mitch too. You know what? We should. I did an interview.
We should
with
get Mitch. What?
Well, I did an interview with him a couple of months ago, and he was going to come back and do a part 2. But I think if we did it all three together, it would stimulate the conversation. I'm going to email him as soon as we're done.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Perfect. Tell him we can get him on Skype, and it can be all three of us. Because Mitch, of course, and Mitch, this is when I first sort of like met you online when we did the Return of the Comet record, and you had a part in that.
Yeah.
And that's when I did a song with Mitch Weissman and Richie Scarlett. And Mitch Weissman really helped me through that project because there was a lot of crazy stuff going on at that time. And if it wasn't for Mitch Weissman and the care he took in helping me to get this song on that record, it wouldn't have happened. So thanks to Mitch Weissman for that, for sure.
Yeah, and that was a great project. That was sort of the first project I hadn't been involved with. This guy, Doug, asked me to find some bands for him. And we got LA Guns, and we got Brian Tishy, and we got Todd Howarth doing the song Danger. And I think Mitch did Remember Me, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's funny because I had that album out yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Return of the Comet. Yeah, great project. And of course, since we're talking tributes, A World with Hero, the original album, and of course the EP featuring Dick Wagner's last performance up on iTunes. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mitch, for having me. I really appreciate it, and I want to come back soon.
Absolutely.